Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast series on innovative healthcare solutions, and it's sponsored by the Conference of Consulting Actuaries. If you've seen many of these before, you know there's a series of interviews that we have with professionals who are focused on delivering innovation in healthcare. These sessions are offered really provide insights about all the ever-changing things that are going on in the healthcare environment in which we live. I'm Ed Pudlowski. I'm president of Morningstar Actuarial Consulting, and I'm also chair of the healthcare community with the CCA. And I'm going to be your host for today's discussion. So I'm happy to be joined today by Jennifer Carter. Jennifer is a physician, but she's also founder and CEO of Medzown. Jennifer, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ed. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story, after having a chance to chat with you. So, Jennifer, Medzown offers a solution for patients who have a need for precision medicine. Just maybe for the benefit of our audience, can you talk a little bit about what precision medicine is in case that they're not aware?
Yes, absolutely. So precision medicine is really about using the biology of every individual's disease and, all the things that come with that to basically try to get to the right treatment for the right patient at the right time. And in today's world, we would say at the right price as well. So what does that mean? It means like as we've evolved the notion of sort of initially personalized medicine to precision medicine really means starting to understand. Now we have the technology that helps us understand the genomics, the genetic makeup of disease. And because of that, pharma companies, biotech companies have been able to develop drugs that really target much more precisely these changes in the genes and thereby can really treat disease much more effectively. There was just an example in the news recently of this, yesterday, in fact, of this baby who was cured of a rare genetic disease through CRISPR technology. That's kind of the ultimate peak of what we're talking about as precision medicine now, is really being able to target those types of changes that are creating disease.
That sounds both intriguing and exciting at the same time. So, what exactly does Medzown do around precision medicine?
Right. So what we're trying to do is really think about it from a holistic perspective about what are the needs of all stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem, right? So by starting, starting first with the patients, of course, because that's the center. Most patients with very serious diseases never really get access to the right diagnostic tests and right treatments over the course of their disease. People go, I call it the swirl when people have like bad cancer, rare diseases, neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's or ALS, real bad or autoimmune diseases, they often go from doctor to doctor, center to center to try to understand what's the best treatment for my disease. And certainly once they fail the standard treatment, standard of care, which many of these individuals do, they get put on, let's try this drug, let's try this test, trial and error medicine. And that leads to essentially more side effects, oftentimes a lot of frustration, worse outcomes, and becomes more and more expensive for the patient and actually for the system. Um, for these people, clinical trials are rarely, if ever, offered in the care continuum, even though cutting edge treatments like that often provide the best opportunity for a good outcome, for better care. What Medzown does is we work with, stepping back for 1 second, for this swirl in the system, if you will, is also bad for other entities, right? Especially for any organization at risk for the cost of care, right? Because, many of these patients are the ones that are costing the most in the system. In fact, we've looked at the data for millions of lives now. And what we see is that patients with those disease areas, and we cover over 4,000, 5,000 disease areas, basically are the ones that, while they're a smaller part of the population, we're seeing in the commercial population about 6 to 10%. In older populations, Medicare is more like 20% have these diseases. They're accounting for over a third to 40% of the total spend and
Wow.
over 50% of the catastrophic risk. So this is really bad and really challenging for payers as well as patients. On the flip side, there are all these new drugs. They're very expensive drugs, like what I was just mentioning, like CRISPR, the cell and gene therapies, but there are thousands of specialty drugs in the pipeline, in development. There are immunotherapies and targeted therapies on the market. These drugs are just phenomenal. They offer patients way better opportunities for treating their disease. However, they're very, very
Hmm.
expensive, and there are thousands of them in the pipeline. So what Medzown does is we work with at-risk organizations, so health plans, self-insured employers, stop loss, value-based care providers, and basically identify the people with cancer, rare diseases, neurodegenerative disease, autoimmune disease, who basically have failed standard care or standard care is not an option. And we get them better, faster access to cutting edge treatments, often in clinical trials. And by so doing, we're able to essentially save payers lots of money and save pharma lots of money by helping them get more patients to their trials and get patients better, faster access to the treatments they need.
I see. So, I mean, I've heard of solutions kind of like this before, although what you're describing sounds a lot more comprehensive. But what makes Medzown unique?
I think what makes Medzown unique is a number of different things. I mean, we're taking a very, very holistic approach to the problem. We're truly patient-centric, and we're basically agnostic pretty much to disease. We can cover all serious diseases. And then what's really unique about us is really the first and last mile. It's a very complicated problem, this problem. To be able to do this for really every disease at scale for every individual, designing individualized strategies, as well as helping people get access, and being able to actually get treated with those drugs. It's the first and last mile that really makes that huge difference.
Now, you do a lot of advanced analytics when you're trying to decide what is the best path of treatment or course of treatment for your patients. Can you talk a little bit about that advanced analytics that you conduct?
Sure, absolutely. So it's really complex. First you have to make sure you're really identifying the right people who need the help, who will benefit from the help. Um, and then, and that's a big data problem. A lot of different data elements go into identifying that. And being able also to predict when people will need help is also really important part of that equation. And then once you've identified those people, there's a whole process around engagement and how to do that. But then actually creating truly individualized strategies for people around their treatment is another problem, is another challenge that really requires deep data analytics, deep understanding of all the various aspects of what's required to create those strategies, prioritize them, help them get access in an effective, efficient way, which is actually beneficial and manageable for each individual at scale. So all those components throughout Ed require deep analytics, and a lot of data and a lot of understanding of the various components. So.
Yeah, I think there's a large part of our audience that'll appreciate the deep analytics aspect of this too. So,
Absolutely. Just the
so
actuarial part of understanding, how the dollars
exactly.
move and the potential savings and where they accrue and how you measure them
Exactly.
is a big data challenge in of itself. Exactly.
Exactly. So Jennifer, I introduced you as a physician. I know you're an MD, but what prompted you to develop this solution? What was kind of going on in the market that created the opportunity, and just give us kind of maybe a sense of the background for why you're here as the CEO of Medzown.
Yes, actually, thanks. I've been on this journey of helping people get access to really precision medicine for probably 17 or 18 years now. Even before it was called precision medicine, it was called personalized medicine back then. So, as a physician, I practiced briefly, but then I spent many years actually working with startups as well as working with some companies that were investing in pharma, biotech, med tech. And that was back in the early 2000s. And I got very interested in cancer drug development and diagnostics. And it was the very early days of what we know now as sort of targeted therapies, things that, and biomarkers in the early sort of diagnostic testing in cancer. It was right around when HER2 and Herceptin, when Herceptin came to the market for HER2 positive breast cancer. So around 25, 26, 2020, 2005, 2006, when I really got interested in it. And at the same time, I was very involved with helping another number of friends and family members who had a bad cancer diagnoses try to navigate their journey. And they could see people at one center of excellence or another and get a second opinion here, a second opinion there, but they were always told different things wherever they went. And at the same time, you could see this data moving, you could see the opportunity around these new drugs, kind of advancing. And I saw the pipeline that was in development. And then I saw the fragmentation and I said, this is just going to get that much harder, right? It's going to be really hard. Physicians don't necessarily have the knowledge, the bandwidth, the access to this really rapidly developing field of technology and biomarkers and new drugs. So I started one of the first precision medicine companies called N of One. And we started the field of what today is known as molecular oncology decision support. And basically what we did was we worked with any type of diagnostic lab that was doing that, looking at the genomics in patients' tumors and turning that into treatment strategies for patients. And we really became one of the best in the world at doing that. And we're still doing it inside the company QIAGEN that acquired us, and that's growing beautifully. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people around the world. It's super exciting. But, on that journey, I realized there were certain things about patients really still not getting access to the treatments, right? There were a lot of variables around the way that physicians use the information, and also challenges within the system that existed. So I worked on a new idea around basically access to clinical trials, sort of reconceiving the access to clinical trials, that I ended up having the opportunity to sell to a pharma company. And they didn't really build it out too much. So I really was able to kind of keep those ideas and keep mulling them over. Most recently, I worked with as a managing partner at Sandbox Industries, which manages the Blue Venture Fund with for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And there I really got into sort of what was going on in the specialty drug space and really the challenges of the cost of cell and gene therapies, right? And it's just a continuum, right? The cell and gene therapies are just the tip of the iceberg right now. There are thousands of these drugs in development. And it became very clear to me that, some of the solutions that are on the market today, while they may be, effective for certain aspects of drugs that are approved and may be helpful to a certain extent, that if you look at the significance of how many drugs there really are in the pipeline and how expensive it's going to be, yet how tremendously valuable they will be for patients, it became clear to me that we have to find a way to get patients access to these drugs, but that it's sustainable for the healthcare system, because the current model is just unaffordable. And so that led me to start putting the pieces of Medzown together. And ultimately, it seemed to make a lot of sense to actually launch it and bring it to the market.
Speaking of launching, how long have you been around? When did you launch?
Yeah, so we've been around just about 2 years is when I sort of started to build the infrastructure and the technology about a couple of years ago. So not very old in company lifespan, but we're already making a real impact in patients' lives and excited to see the growth. So.
Right. So what I hear is that, through timely access to cutting edge treatments, Medzown can really improve not only outcomes for the patient, but also has a particularly huge impact on the ability to reduce the cost of of these precision medicines.
Correct. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Jennifer, one of the last questions I have, I try to vary off or vary from our normal course and just ask, if you didn't become a physician, what would your life passion have been?
Oh, that's such a great question. I don't know. I've loved science and medicine since I was a kid. I don't know, but I think that but I love creating companies and being an entrepreneur and growing teams and seeing ideas come to life that really impact and help people. So I'm not really sure, but I think I'm very happy with what I do and what I get to think about every day. I feel like it's a true gift, Ed. So
I I struggle with that question too, if ever asked of me, but I think a large part of it is exactly kind of what you expressed. You have a passion for what you're doing, so you're really doing what you like. So that's kind of great to hear. Well, Jennifer, I'd like to thank you for participating with us today and doing this interview. And I'd like to encourage our viewers who also participate in our healthcare community within the CCA to continue kind of any discussions about some of the insights that were shared here today on this platform. If you're not a member of the CCA, you may want to consider joining not only to experience the benefits of the community platform that I just mentioned, but also the other great benefits that our members enjoy. Jennifer, thanks again for being here today and sharing your insights and experiences about what Medzown is doing to drive innovation in healthcare. I know I really enjoyed the time here today, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy hearing a lot of the insights you shared.
thanks so much, Ed. I appreciate it.